walk and talk mode here. So, big ideas. Perhaps some of the biggest. This is going to be, of course, a little bit far out, given that it is going to address pretty big ideas. So, firstly, are we in something akin to revelations? Now, it doesn't have to be exactly the revelations of the body of the Bible, although I personally think there might be some strong correlations here. Although that might be a more primitive version of how we can interpret it, the data. Don't take it perhaps as a concretizing vision of exactly how things will unfold or should unfold, etc. Rather just a framework for which we might see things. So I base this theory on a really broad theological notion that takes into account, in my opinion, most of the religious traditions. So like Ken Wilber argues, for example, that there are different kinds of mysticism. So deeper and deeper unions with the nature of existence. The first real step in that unitive process you might see in yogis or shamans, where there's a nature mysticism, where a unification happens with sort of the physical world. As the union deepens, then you get into what might be called deity mysticism, where you unify with God, as it were. But that's oftentimes associated with lucid dreaming. And you can have unitive states in the waking state, plus these more unitive experiences in the dreaming state. And as it deepens into the deep dreamless sleep, then you can witness, as it were, the deep dreamless sleep state. So you're a witness to all these different experiences, if there's anything to this. The theory that I've been positing is something called fractal dynamics. The idea of fractal dynamics is that there is some kinds of repeating patterns in the nature of the universe. One of which is that akin to spiral dynamics, which is a 6-on-6 pattern, this pattern is repeating on different orders of magnitude, as it were. So I've described that we've kind of passed through 3 epochs, and the epochs kind of relate to matter, vital life, reptilian brainstem, mammalian limbic system, complex neocortex, and we're going into the 6th epoch, in my opinion, which will take the tool-making processes of the 5th epoch, which is, all the different technologies that we've built, and we'll build them into a brain-mind interface. Now, I'm not saying this is necessarily good. In fact, I think there are great dangers to doing this, some of which is that if we live in a system that is highly controlled, which I tend to think we do to some important degree, there is indeed worries about the control mechanisms behind something that is so vastly connected, something so intimately intertwined with our brain-mind system. So we have to be on guard about this, I think. However, in my theorizing, there's this notion that the nature mysticism, that is to say, the gross mysticism of feeling deeply connected in the waking state, has something to do with this new technological interface that we're now stepping into. And if you use the Hindu theory of the chakras, for example, and I think this is kind of dangerous, but I think it is important to integrate. There's this notion of 6 or 7 chakras. I'm going to use 6, with the 7th being the opening to which a new 6th system unfolds. That might not be exactly right, but we'll leave it at that, and there are interpretations that I've had that are different. But with this, the 6 connect the perineal is the first, essentially, the sacrum, I think it is, the second, the solar plexus, the third, the heart, the fourth, the throat, the fifth, and the forehead, the sixth. If there's a fractal parallel here, then I'm suggesting that indeed how this works is that The fifth epic, which is the human epic, is the throat. We are speakers. We speak into existence new thoughts, new modalities of understanding the nature of things. And the movement in the sixth epic is one of what I call visioneering, where we vision landscapes that are interconnected. So you can think virtual reality or fully immersive virtual reality as described by people like Wachowski's in The Matrix, where indeed we're like telepathically linked into this deeper system of mind. Again, systems and control, very important here. The bigger epic that I'm arguing that contains this entire universe potentially is related to matter itself. So this thing is on a very big order, sort of third system oriented, which is kind of power oriented in the very, very big scope of things. Therefore, the people that posited something like heaven, however that might look, something transcendental, embraces the idea of the good. The previous system is about the will primarily, which is embracing the whole cosmos. We live in a death cycle. We have to kill to eat. What I'm suggesting is that there is potentially a way to transcend the death cycle, where indeed there's a space for goodliness and embrace the luminosities of others' existence. And it requires a building process to get there potentially. That is to say, we still have to create the frameworks for which to springboard into that existence. So all the dangers that are inherent within this technological matrix that we're kind of setting up might be prerequisites to transcend it, however dangerous that might sound. And I think it is, because it is within this control matrix, if you understand what I'm saying. So the primary focus here is on the I as an embodied self, in sort of opposition or relation to the world around us. And one of the good things that will come out of, I think, this highly interconnected system is that we will more easily be able to step into the perspective of others, therefore empathizing with them more deeply. And that opens up the potential for which a transcendent system can be operated upon it. We can transcend potentially the death cycle, if that's not too far out. So where does Revelation sit within this idea? What does that even mean? The idea here within this context is that this sixth system that I've been talking about in Hindu systems, which is the yogic system, which is the nature mystic system, relates to, visions and so forth. And so if the fifth system doesn't have that real capacity, the sixth system starts to open that up. And so the truly intuitive mind of the sixth system starts to open. And this very well might have the transition might have really started around 2012. The idea with my framework is that things start slow. So you don't see much happening in the early part of it, but picks up quite fast. And the idea here is we're in an exponential system. So the patterns that are unfolding are happening in an exponential or compounding manner. So the first structure of the sixth epic would be quite slow, but it would be followed very rapidly by novel and more complex systems thereafter. So that's what I mean by revelations, if there's anything to this. Okay, be well.